When Chris Haslam paid a visit to the loneliest man in Argentina, he was expecting to find a life as dramatic as the scenery. It wasn't the thrilling encounter he was hoping for. The interview isn't going terribly well. I've traveled for 4 days to Argentina's mountainous northwestern corner to talk to a man whom I thought might be the world's loneliest pensioner. It turns out that he's not as lonely as I was led to believe, but we'll come back to that. This sun-cured, septuagenarian llama farmer is called Don Roberto Placa, and he lives on the slopes of an 18,400-5600 mountain bank in the middle of nowhere. From the broken plastic chair outside his lone, sparsely furnished home, he can see 4 volcanoes, a shimmering salt desert and, in the distance, against a space-black sky, the jagged spike of the Cerro del Hombre Muerto, the dead man's peak. The nearest village is 3 hours away, along the frost-shattered, quake-cracked track that winds through a Dali-esque landscape of glassy walls of lava, sudden death ravines and toxic lakes of arsenic. They call this place La Puna, from the Quechua word for badlands, and they say it's the place God gave the devil to show off his landscaping skills. Curiosity as to how, and why, anyone can live in this disturbingly beautiful yet hellish land is what brought me here. But as I mentioned, Don Roberto is being willfully obdurate. He was born on this wine-scoured slope and has lived here for 74 years, he says. Since his parents died, he's been alone, but life is tranquilo. The thermal variation here is the highest on Earth, with temperatures ranging from +30°C to -30°C in the space of a single day. It must be tough dealing with that, I suggest. Don Roberto shrugs. It's fine. What about the pumas? I ask. Yesterday, the German explorer told me how he'd found one of Don Roberto's elderly neighbors. He lives just 55 miles 88 kilometers down the road, bedridden with a broken hip, half-starved and dangerously dehydrated, while a pair of mountain lions waited patiently on his doorstep for him to expire. Pumas, sniffs Don Roberto. Pussycats. And so, in one of the most dramatic landscapes on Earth, continues one of the world's most humdrum interviews. What about food? I ask. When I run out I go hungry. No problem. Health? I pray to God and within 3 days I'm better. Loneliness. People drop by all the time, sighs Don Roberto. Just 8 weeks ago I had a visitor. Storms, earthquakes, landslides and volcanic eruptions. I make offerings to Pachamama for protection, says Don Roberto, referring to the Inca goddess. He leads me around his garden. Watered by trenches dug in the turf from the glacial stream nearby, it sprouts guava, potatoes and avocados. Don Roberto shows me his pear tree. Frost-proof, he says before bending with the suppleness of a yogi to dam a channel with a slab of obsidian. Does he have a radio? No. TV? No. Doesn't he get bored? Don Roberto gives me a wearily incredulous look. Bored? He says. I don't have time to get bored. His daily routine involves tending his garden, praying to God and looking after his small herd of llamas, some of whom are in the meadow, over the back, he says. By over the back he means a 22-mile 35-kilometer round trip on foot over a 15,000 fort for 500 m pass that's regularly closed by blizzards. That's a dangerous hike, I say. Not really, replies Don Roberto. It's time to play the trump card, the last resort of the inept reporter. It works like this. You make an irresistibly attractive hypothetical proposal in the confident expectation that the interviewee will reject it. His justification of that rejection will then reinforce the story. So if the government offered you a brand new, centrally heated, air-conditioned apartment in the city of Salta, a 2-day drive from here, with running water and a flat-screen TV, would you take it? I ask. Don Roberto looks at me like I'm an idiot. Of course I would, he says. And there's a reason why the seemingly indestructible old pragmatist would jump at the chance to escape. He's not as alone here as he makes out. Behind his house stands another, but in his laconic description of his 30 years of solitude, Don Roberto hasn't once mentioned his neighbor. When I ask, He gives me a look as dark as the storm sweeping in from the Chilean border. He will not discuss the neighbor. The interview, it seems, is terminato. That night, in a cold diner in the dusty hamlet of Toller Grande, 88 miles north, I learned the truth. Don Roberto's neighbor is his sister, confides the waitress. No one remembers why they fell out, but they haven't spoken in 30 years. There's nothing in Pachamama's book of spells, it seems, that's more powerful than a family feud.